Ahead of her gig at Chipping Norton Theatre, Glovebox Live's Nick John interviews traditional English folk singer Fay Hield.
Green gravel, the grass is so green, such beautiful flowers as ever were seen. Oh honey, your sweetheart has fled. He sent you a letter to turn round your head.
So welcome everybody to another interview for Glovebox Live. We're at the wonderful theatre in Chipping Norton, and I'm with the equally wonderful Fay Hield. Welcome, Fay.
Thank you.
Hi. Have you played here before?
No, I haven't. It looks very familiar, but I don't think I have.
I believe it's an old temperance hall.
It's beautiful.
So
Beautiful
it's
building.
lovely, but they allow beer now, so we're okay. Now you're touring on the back of, I think is the expression, of Old Adam, which you released last year.
Yep.
One of the questions I was going to ask you was, there was a long gap between Orfeo in 2012 and the new album, and then I looked and saw what you've been doing, and I thought, yeah, I understand now, because you seem to be incredibly busy all the time.
Yes.
So you've done the full English project in 2013. You do the regular Soundpost singing weekenders.
Yep. Yeah. Soundpost does all sorts of stuff, lots of school workshops and things as well.
Soundpost is also your record label now.
Yes. Yeah.
That's something else to fill your time.
Well, there's a little bit of my time on the record label because somebody else does that, and most of that, to be honest, is done once the record comes out. It just sort of sits there. So that's sort of an informal little thing that just sits in the background. But doing the education stuff, that takes a lot of time. And we run a couple of folk clubs as well, one in our local village, and then I've done stuff with Kit Bailey and things as well in Sheffield too. So yeah, quite a lot of stuff.
And you're an academic, I have to say this.
Oh yeah, I do have a full-time job as well.
I don't often get a chance to say that in interviews, but
Yeah.
you're an academic and you've got a PhD in English folk singing.
I do, yeah, traditional singing scenes and that sort of community around folk clubs. And
Are you a
singing sessions.
professor, or is that not?
I'm not professor yet, no,
Okay.
that comes later, but I am a doctor.
Okay, that's brilliant. That's fantastic. So now I've come to folk music quite late, so via a sort of circuitous route of glam, punk, metal, and so on. I suspect your background was very different.
Yeah, I was born and brought up in it. So my mum was a Morris dancer, and my dad used to go to the local folk club. So yeah, I've sort of known the music and what it's like to be just in a pub with lots of people singing for fun and having a great buzz out of it, and the family side of it. So that was my PhD, really trying to understand that community aspect of it and how important it is to me in my life, really, and why some people.
What's the common thread? It's the common thread in everything you do, isn't it?
I suppose so. I garden as well. I like to garden, and I like doing.
Yeah, but I bet you
work,
sing traditional songs while you're
when I'm
gardening.
gardening. Well, yeah, no, I rule the world, change the world while I'm gardening.
What is the parameters with traditional song and folk music? Where do the two connect? Are they separate?
Can of worms, depends who you're asking. Everybody's got a very firm opinion on that, and it's not really my place to say what the answer is. So loads and loads of different ideas. So traditional music for a lot of people means old stuff which doesn't have authors and has been absorbed into the tradition and is this very old and antiquarian thing, whereas folk music for lots of people is more about protest song and people expressing and communicating. So
you said that about American
different.
folk. You said a lot of Americans would say folk music was Joan Baez and Dylan and
Yeah.
stuff, which is contemporary songs, isn't it?
It is, and I suppose in America they've got the thing of tradition. A lot of the traditions in America have been brought in, relatively recently. So their idea of traditional song is very different to English idea of traditional song, or lots of other European nations' ideas of traditional song. So yes, but then if you look at folk in Ireland or Scotland, that means something very different to traditional music there as well. So in England, it's pretty mixed up. And it depends who you're talking to as to what it is, whether it's an act of making music together or whether it's items of material or whether it's a way of communicating with people. So lots of different perspectives on it, and I don't really have a view. So even if I were to give you my answer, I don't think I could. I haven't got one.
Green gravel, the grass is so green. The pretty young maidens are not to be seen. We washed her, we dried her, we rolled her in silk, and we wrote down their names with a gold pen and ink.
When you come to do a new album, what's the criteria by which you pick a song?
Liking it, thinking it's great, enjoying it, liking the story and the words and the sound. So
it's something that moves you.
Yeah.
And how do you go about interpreting that? Because you presumably it's a wide palette with what you can do with a traditional song.
Well, songs take quite a while to grow on me. So if I'm trying to learn a song, if I need a song, it's a bit of an odd process, just deciding to learn a song and not having one under your nose or something. So if I go to a book and flick through a book, they look very alien and disjointed to me, and I might be familiar with the names of them or the ideas of versions, and you spend a lifetime in this field, you know quite a lot of what the material is out there. But so then to just try and get a relationship with something new, that takes a bit of time really, and it's quite incremental. So when I'm trying to learn a song, usually I don't like the song when I first start with it, and it's through that process of sort of engaging in it and investing in it, sort of bringing out different versions and finding the story in it and finding the connections yourself. It's rare that I'll find a book with a page in it and just go, yes, that it doesn't hit me like that. I have to work with it, and we have to earn each other's respect, I think, really.
A lot of the material is that you're looking at songs and you think, I can't do that because so-and-so's done it already or recently or a couple of years, or do you love the song and say, I'm going to do something different with it?
Well, I'd never, that's the nail on the head, yeah. I wouldn't take one of the Unthanks songs and take their lyrics and their tune and do it like that, like a cover version type idea. And yet this is traditional music, so every time you do a version of a song, it's this... That's it, that's a bit of a can of worms. How much of it you're trying to keep a tradition going and keeping a connection with the sources, and how much you're trying to bring your own individuality into it, and that's another real tension in folk music. So I'll always try and bring something new to it. Even if I'm just singing something unaccompanied and I've learned it from an unaccompanied singer, just the act of understanding it in my way changes it. It's not always a deliberately conscious thing, but... it does just change it. And of course there's a difference between learning a song and being a singer and singing down the pub, and being a professional musician and creating CDs to sell. And when I'm a professional musician, I have a responsibility to audiences and to other artists, not to work in a particular way. But to be a folk singer, you don't need any of those rules. So it depends what hat you've got on, what you're doing.
Yeah. And do you write your own material? Have you?
I write tunes to go with songs, because lots of these songs just have lyrics in books. So I write quite a lot of tunes, and I do a lot of editing. I wouldn't say I'm a songwriter by any stretch of the imagination, but I do... most of those versions that I sing wouldn't exist without me putting bits of verses together from elsewhere. So it's quite a creative editorial role in that. It's a fascinating
process.
Yeah, it is, and it's really fun to do. And you quite often forget what you've done afterwards as well. So there'll be some songs that I think I've had quite a big hand in, and then I'll go back to the page and actually I'm singing it quite straight. And then there's others that you think, oh yeah, no, that really didn't exist before I did that. And you forget. I forget tunes that I've written and think it's a traditional tune, and then remember that was my tune.
Gypsy Davy come through the woods, singing so loud and merry. The green hills all around him rang, and he won the heart of a lady. How old are you, me pretty fair miss? How old are you, my lady? She answered him down by the riverside. I'll be 16 next Sunday.
And it must be encouraging for you to see, again, how many people are coming back to seeing folk music in a live setting. And younger people as well.
Yeah, well, this Resurgence idea, it is, obviously, but it's tied a lot to live festivals and lots of gigs in art centres and theatres like we're at today. But like 10, 15 years ago, this circuit really didn't exist, and it was all folk clubs. And so they're breaking into art centres. So it's brilliant that those audiences are there and that festivals are thriving and the recording industry is great. People like Sam Lee and Young Thanks I mentioned, sticking the wheel. They're selling great albums and making great albums. And radio, the media have taken it on as a serious art form again, like it was understood in the 70s. So that is brilliant. But what is just coming through now is people actually doing it for themselves, because that was a very sort of consuming audience. They would take this music presented to them, and that's not, for a lot of people, what folk music is. It's about getting involved and singing or playing along. And I think the resurgence in listening audience is now trickling through into a resurgence in people making music for fun and for pleasure and for each other. And I think that's an amazing thing. That's why I do the education stuff, to try and help people get into doing it for themselves, because it's just such a brilliant thing to do. So that's why we do that. I was at the Goosey's Out Folk Club recently. Sorry, I'm waffling now.
No, carry on.
In London, and that was amazing. It was a really good experience. So there's about 60 people in for a sing-around, which is quite unheard of for most folk clubs. We advertise sing-around, and that's unusual. And it was really core trad folk material, but at least half the room were sort of under 40. And so obviously in London, it's a slightly different demographic to the rest of the world. But they were coming in, and there were some singer-songwriter guitarists, and there were some singing covers of other people's songs, and there were some like just standing up singing very straight ballads as well. And it was incredible. It was a really vibrant atmosphere, and they all took it very seriously and thought it was very cool. And they were very cool. It was brilliant. So I'd really like to help that happen in any way we can, really.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, thank you very much for talking to us. I'm really going to look forward to seeing you again tonight. So that'll be great.
Lovely.
Thanks very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Raggle, taggle, gypsy, gypsy, raggle, taggle, gypsy.
That was a broadcast production by gloveboxlive.uk.
It was late at night when the